Good morning, everybody. All right. I was just sending a little message over to the boys. So it's election day. And yeah, we have some expectations. I've got a garbage person here because, you know, the Donald is here to take out the trash. We're hoping.
Yeah, we're hoping. Bear with me. I completely I can't camera this morning.
Mode, baby. This is where we live.
Yeah.
And that's all right. While you get that sorted out, Cameron, I'll say good morning to some people because Thomas Waller has first blood this morning. Arr! Trish is with us. Uncle Steve joins us. I see Megan and the Sergeant Major's with us, Your Majesty. Fish and Golf is with us this morning. Hell yes. Good morning, everybody. It's election day. I frankly hope that none of my viewers are going to vote today. Because I've been after your asses for the last month and change to go and early vote as early as possible. Because like we've said on the show many times in the last month and change, early voting is stupid, but voting early is smart because you want to make sure that you're not going to run into issues. Like today, there will be Americans today, mostly Trump voters, who get to the polls and are either told, no, you already voted, or we had a water main break, so we have to close the polls today. Sorry for the inconvenience, right? As much as I detest early voting because of the shenanigans that we expect, and when I say expect, make no mistake, the shenanigans are already happening. We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But there have already been several instances of clear voter intimidation, misinformation, and just madness going on. We did a whole show covering in Pennsylvania where police officers were dispatched to shut down the polls on the last day of early voting at 1:00 in the afternoon, which was, let's not mix words about this. That was the government and agents of the government engaged in the commission of serious crime against Americans. We just lost Cameron. I hope what just happened is he had to drop out to reboot his computer to get his camera working because we're, live is hard mode, technical problems. Sergeant Major says, for the audience, you would be amazed by the number of comments that scroll along while the show is live. Yeah, try keeping up. Waller says he's not allowed to vote in Georgia. I'm a little disappointed to hear that, Waller, but hopefully you absentee voted wherever you voted. Something that Tim Pool has been harping on for a while now is it doesn't matter if you're in a blue state or red state or a purple state, you need to vote. Because, okay, so the swing states matter, obviously, for the count, for the electoral college votes, etc. But like if you're a Republican in California, right? Nobody reasonably expects that California is going to flip red. Same thing with New York and a few Washington State, not going to flip red. But your vote still matters, because if Donald Trump can win today with an overwhelming electoral college victory and the popular vote, that will be a clear mandate to the government and to the psychotic woke cult that no, we're tired of your shit. We're fed up. We're done with it. As a country, we're tired of the infanticide. We're tired of the endless war. We're tired of paying twice as much as we should for gas, groceries, electric bills, rents, etc. We are tired of child mutilation. We're tired of the government smashing in our doors to murder our pets and take our children away. We're tired of your shit.
Well, there's an important thing with voting, even if you're in a blue state. The left is building momentum toward making a run at eliminating the Electoral College. And you might think, oh, that'll never happen. Well, the thing that the left understands is incrementalism. They've literally been pushing for socialized medicine for a century. And Obamacare was sort of the first of the last of the steps they need to take to have us roll over to a real national healthcare system. So one way to combat that is to not say, oh, I live in New York, there's no reason for me to vote because I'm a Republican. No, there's plenty of reason, not the least of which includes you can also determine your local politicians, which
correct.
If our government is functioning properly, your local politicians should actually have a lot more impact on your day-to-day life anyway. So yeah, vote, especially if you're going to vote for Trump. Definitely vote. If you're going to vote for Vice President Spit Roast, I'm okay if you stay home. Really.
Yeah. And I mean, Kamala's doing great. She doesn't really need your vote. You know, if you want to vote Kamala, you can do it tomorrow. It'll be okay. And I actually mean that in all seriousness, because many of the districts where the district and the government support Kamala, they are actively lobbying to say, oh no, we can count mail-in ballots that are postmarked after election day, which is psychotic. But Cameron, to your point, three things. You were talking about incrementalism. You brought up leftist incrementalism. To buttress that claim, let me remind you, we did a show where we covered Gruber, who was one of the main architects of Obamacare, and he's
proud of himself.
Out loud. Yeah, he was very proud of himself. He made it very clear. Look, the point to Obamacare is that it's bad. It will fail. And we're using it as a stepping stone to get to the total single payer socialized medicine that we want. It is an incremental step. We're doing this. He all but said the phrase, we're doing this to cause harm and create a problem so that we can run on it and run on solving that problem so that we can get the actual communism that we're looking for. Now, so that's the first thing. The next thing on Second Amendment rights, the left has pushed, and they're constantly pushing incremental. Oh, well, we don't want to take your guns away. We just want to cap the magazine capacity. We don't want to take your guns away. We want them all to be smart guns with fingerprint readers so that only the owner can fire it. We don't want to take your guns away. We just want to make sure that if you have a history of family violence, which is only verified by the reporting of one anonymous source, that you don't have guns in the house. We just want to make sure that it's safe in schools. And like, okay, yeah. And a lot of that sounds good on paper, right? And I know if you've got a brain in your head, it doesn't even sound good on paper, but to the average uninformed voter, it does. Oh, safe guns? That's awesome. Oh, gun-free zones. Nobody has a gun there, so nobody gets shot. Except that every mass shooting in U.S. history, with the exception of the Lubies in Texas in, 2008? 7 or something, was a gun-free zone, right? The Colorado theater shooting, every school shooting, it's always a gun-free zone because cowards choose soft targets. So psychopaths and sociopaths are at their core self-interested cowards. They will always choose the soft target. And so having gun-free zones makes that a problem. However, on the other side of that, we have also enjoyed some successful incrementalism on the right. One state after another is flipping. And we actually have more states now. The last time I looked, the count was 27. I think we're at 29 now. But somewhere between 27 and 30 states now are constitutional carry states. And I don't want to rehash the quibbles about that phrase constitutional carry, because I'll take the nomonym of constitutional carry over whatever the fuck they're doing in New York and California and Hawaii today, twice on Tuesday, which it happens to be. And then the third one, let me see if I can organize these thoughts and explain this one correctly. It was something that I heard Jeremy Boring explaining on a podcast earlier. The left does the things that they say they're going to do, and the right doesn't do the things that the left says that the right is going to do. So when the left says we want abortion, they mean it, and they mean it hard. They mean up to and including after the baby is born. Right? And we've, select cases, but we've got 12,000 end of ninth trimester abortions per year. We went from safe, and this is that incrementalism thing. We went from the idea of safe, legal, and rare to on demand and at taxpayer expenses overnight. But the pro-life movement for decades, in fact, 7 of them, has really only had one major objective, and that's not to abolish abortion nationally. That the idea of getting rid of abortion nationally so that no child is murdered in America, that's a pipe dream until recently. The major objective has been to overturn Roe v. Wade. But it looks like the pro-life movement and the Republican Party, where it is pro-life, has been so focused on getting Roe v. Wade overturned, but not really believing that they could get it done, that the result is now we live in a post-Roe world, and the pro-life movement doesn't quite know what to do with itself. And in part, that's because by national popular opinion, banning abortion outright is not an especially popular position. And that's why the left goes so hard on trying to convince people that late-term abortions just aren't a thing. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but you hear them all the time argue, well, you don't even want an exception for life of the mother, rape, or incest. Like, okay, let me clarify something for you. There are more late-term abortions than there are life of the mother cases, rape cases, or incest cases of abortion combined. There are more late-term abortions than there are any of the 3 major exceptions that the Democrats pretend like they're interested in. And when I say they pretend they're interested in, if you say, hey, I'll go full on with, I'll give it to you. You can have your exceptions as long as we outlaw recreational abortion. I saw a meme earlier today, and it's a man in a flannel shirt standing. Sorry, Cameron. He's standing there in a voting booth, and his daughter, little girl standing behind him, dressed in all pink with a pink Stanley Cup, and the straw in the Stanley Cup even has the little female feminist symbol on it. And she says, "Who are you voting for, Daddy?" He says, "I'm voting for you." And it was shared by a notorious liberal account. And I replied, wouldn't it be nice if if fathers just didn't assume that their daughters were going to grow up to be whores who needed recreational abortions all the time, who became serial abortionists to support their licentious promiscuity and malbehavior. Maybe instead of voting to kill your grandchildren, Bryan Cranston, you should raise them to be responsible human beings and not go and leave a trail of fucking dead baby bodies behind their whoremongering.
So it's election day.
It is.
I'm going to very obviously drag us back into the realm of the topic.
Please do. But I did want to beat on the incrementalism thing because you brought it up, and it is important. And Cameron's point about the incrementalism really does illustrate why it's important that even if you're in California, Washington, New York, you need to go vote Republican for that, to send that message. We're tired of your shit. We're tired of you slowly dragging us into hell, one grueling step after another.
Yes, well, I'm glad I could say something so profound that it just made your brain fizz like Alka-Seltzer. It was just all right. So, I wasn't even trying to be cute. That I actually just swallowed that coffee wrong. So election day, I'll just come right out and say it. I think Trump is going to win. I think Trump is going to win the legitimate vote. Now, if that's how it actually plays out, who knows? I have been interested in following politics. I'm old enough now where I could say, hey, I've been following politics since I was in high school, which was 30 years ago. And I've had a pretty good sense of who was going to win each election, presidential wise. Like, it wasn't surprising when Romney lost in 2012, and it wasn't surprising to anybody when John McCain lost in 2008. The only time I've ever really been surprised was 2020. And I don't think I need to explain to anybody why that could possibly be. So that same sense tells me that Donald Trump should win somewhere 39 to 42 states. I think it was Fish and Golf say, let's turn Illinois red. Appreciate your optimism, but in fact, I could name the states that I don't think will go red, and that's California, Washington, Illinois, Oregon, New York, New Jersey, Hawaii, and Vermont. And then if I had to stretch that field a little bit, I'd say Colorado and New Mexico. So that gives the remaining 40 states going to Trump. Possibly Nevada. So then that gives the remaining 39 states going to Trump. That is how I would think that Donald Trump would win. He would win Georgia. He would win North Carolina. He would win Pennsylvania. He would win Michigan. He would win Wisconsin. I know you've covered this here, Chris.
Yeah, 270 to win agrees with you. Almost 100, almost perfectly.
See, and I anyhow, thanks for pulling that up. Hawaii. I left Hawaii off that list. Thanks. That is how I would think that it should go. That Donald Trump will win between 39 and 42 states, and he will have between 300 and 350 electoral college votes, and will at least pull even in the popular vote, if not outright win it. Now, is that actually going to happen? I don't know. But I will say this. What happened in 2020 was the equivalent of playing the ace of spades when you're playing spades.
We're going to talk about the black vote?
No, but that's not where I was going with that.
I could not resist that one.
No, but what happened in 2020 was the equivalent of playing the ace of spades in a game of spades. There's only one. So if they play it again this time around, when we've literally got multiple cycles that include Trump in it to compare to, in 2016, Trump trailed Clinton by a couple of points and then managed to beat her by a couple of points. In 2020, Trump trailed Biden by more than a couple of points and ended up only losing by a couple of points. Well, now Trump is actually slightly in the lead in a lot of the aggregates. So if the trend holds where Donald Trump adds 2 or 3 points to whatever the pollsters say he has, Trump is going to destroy this election. I saw North Carolina going blue. I don't see it. I just don't see it. I understand why you're concerned. I never would have dreamed Georgia would go blue, and it would be blue long enough to elect not one but 2 Democrat senators. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I am actually.
Yeah, the ground game in Georgia in 2020 was insane.
Well, but now we've got the reverse. I don't want to spin off on a rails about why I like Brian Kemp and why you don't. Like, we know how we both feel about that. But what Brian Kemp does have is a very effective political machine here in Georgia. And he has been a supporter of Trump in this presidential cycle, I think is a perfectly factual way to describe it. And I just don't see that ground game letting Trump down. Also, the Georgia Supreme Court within the last 24 hours overruled. You heard about the emergency decision in Cobb County where they were going to be able to accept ballots after Election Day in certain cases. Like, it was going to be like something around 70,000 votes that were in question. And given the fact that in the last presidential cycle, it was decided by 12,000 votes, 70,000 votes is a lot. Yep. Well, the Georgia Supreme Court ruled, and they basically said, no, look, you can't make an emergency ruling like this 3 days before the election. Sorry, we're overturning that. If you wanted to do this, you should have worked this out a month ago, which is the right decision, obviously. So I say all that to say, I am optimistic. And I'll even go so far as to make a really specific prediction. If somewhere around 11 p.m. Eastern time, midnight, 1 a.m. Eastern time, we show Trump winning or we show Trump likely to win, Trump will win. If we get to like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and we're not real sure, we need more time to cast ballot. Wow, that was a Freudian slip. We're not real sure, we need more time to count ballots. That's gonna look bad for Trump. That is going to look bad for Trump. The other prediction that I'll make is that if Georgia, we can't use Pennsylvania as a bellwether. I'd like to. I believe whoever wins Pennsylvania will win the election. You could take that to the bank. But Pennsylvania has went ahead and let us know, it might take us days to count our votes. And it's like, yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. Florida could do it in like 4 hours, but you guys need days. Go fuck yourselves. So I'm going to use Georgia as the bellwether. If Georgia is called shortly after the polls close and it's called decisively for a candidate after the polls close, that candidate will be declared the winner. Notice I said that candidate will be declared the winner. Not necessarily that I think that candidate is the winner. But if it's 9:13 and CNN and Fox News and the AP and ABC all go, Kamala won Georgia. We don't even need to finish counting the votes. We already know. Well, buckle up, Buttercup. But at the same time, if it's 9:13 and all those same things are saying, yeah, we're going to call Georgia for Trump. I think Trump is going to win. So those are my election predictions.
So to your point about counting ballots after the day and extended counting and all that, I'm sure many of you have seen the memes. It's awful interesting that it's only those 6 swing states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, etc., that that say they may not be able to get the vote counted by the evening. In all of those states, they cite that, well, the reason is because the mail-in votes and early votes, we're not allowed to count those before Election Day. Well, let's clarify something real quick. If your state is not allowed to count votes, to count the early votes and to count the mail-in votes before Election Day, that is because your state has chosen to have the law reflect that. Florida was the problem child in the 2020 election. And then they said, well, we're going to unfuck that situation right now. We're going to get rid of these butterfly ballots. Election. Huh?
Florida wasn't the problem in 2020. You mean 2000?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant 2000. Did I say 2020? Yeah, 2000.
No, 2000. Pennsylvania was the problem child.
Correct.
And then,
and Georgia. Pennsylvania and Georgia were the problem children. And
Arizona and basically every swing state.
Funny that. But in Florida, they count the mail-in ballots as they come in. They count the early votes as they come in. And then, so on Election Day, they have counted the early and mail-in ballots. And when the polls close, right, the scanner counts the ballots as you cast them. And when the polls close on Election Day, 5-10 minutes later, they know who won the election in Florida. The only reason that is not the case in any other state is because in order to, for the explicit purpose of facilitating voter fraud, your state's government has chosen not to do it correctly. Florida shows us a working model. This is how it gets done. It gets done on time and it gets done accurately. And they show us they're showing us very clearly. If your state cannot tell you within 10 or 15 minutes of the polls closing who won your state, it's because they are choosing to create a situation that facilitates fraud. They're going out of their way to make fraud easier. And like I've talked about many times on this show, I've talked to judges about this and political appointees, representatives, and there is so much fraud in every election that the Justice Department and the courts cannot handle the number of fraud cases that need to be adjudicated. And so they choose, since they cannot handle all of them, they choose to handle none of them. So the problem goes relatively unpunished. You hear a story every now and then about somebody who got caught like blatantly.
Yes. Blatantly.
But those stories are like red-handed. Oh, this guy was naked in a trench coat with with one of those old white mail tubs full of ballots, and he was stuffing them all into one post box, right? Blatant. Like somebody, it's like committing a murder in this country. If you're a halfway competent fighter, if you're a halfway competent person, your odds of getting arrested for murder are slim to none. And even if you are caught, it's only about a 50% solve rate nationally. Now, if you're in Rockdale County, you're essentially guaranteed to get away with it because they have a 0% solve rate.
Yeah. So what is your? I laid out a few theories there about how I think things are going to go. You what are your specific theories here, buddy? How is this going to?
So the polls are telling us that the women are outvoting men in early voting and mail-in voting by about 10 points, and the Democrats are super optimistic about that because, let's be clear,
Because My Handmaid's Tale.
My Handmaid's Tale. Oh, God, dude, I saw a picture the other day of a woman wearing the Handmaid's Tale outfit to vote. She's in the ballot box, or she's in the ballot station casting her vote. She's wearing the Handmaid's Tale outfit, and there were all these lefties like, "Oh, she's so brave. That's so bold." So I'm like, lock that bitch up. That is illegal. That is no different than wearing a MAGA hat or a Harris Walz hat in the poll. You are not allowed to wear political campaign material in the polls. And if you try to tell me that a woman showing up in the Handmaid's Tale outfit to the polls is not wearing political campaign material to the polls, you're a fucking liar. Lock the bitch up. Because what's good, sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander, baby. Now, that said, women appear to be outvoting men in early voting, and the Democrats are super optimistic about that. I am also. Because let's be real. Women, this is what the Democrat thinks of you. You're a whore, and you want to have unlimited, promiscuous sex without consequence. And the only way that you can do that is by having access to free abortions on demand so that you can have multiple abortions, because Hollywood has convinced you that you can't have a career and be a successful and happy woman unless you sacrifice a child to Moloch in the process. That's why they're optimistic about the vote. I have a beautiful wife and 3 daughters. I have a very different opinion of women. And so I am a bit more optimistic that at least some number of those early voting American women are not ravenous whores bent on the destruction of mankind.
Yeah, they're not. Your husband will never know. You can vote Kamala and lie. Like,
yeah,
the projection that is like IMAX levels when I see stuff like that.
There's a bunch of women apparently running a kind of grassroots campaign where they're putting sticky notes in ladies' bathroom stalls, telling you need to lie to your husband and vote for Kamala, which is especially interesting because it tells me also, not just that the Democrats are morally reprehensible, child murdering sociopaths, but they believe that married women are more likely to vote for Donald Trump. And that's true. Married women are more likely to vote for Donald Trump than single women are. Because married women, especially married women with children, are statistically less interested in murdering their offspring and progeny. They're less interested in their daughters aborting their grandchildren.
Well, they also go to Walmart. Look, it's the economy, stupid. And yes, it is. Like those married women with children, yeah, they tend to do the grocery shopping.
Yep.
And when you're the one that goes to Walmart and your milk and your eggs and your fabric softener are eye-wateringly expensive, that has an effect.
And women traditionally and generally have an outsized role in buying decisions. In a traditional marriage, women make
my money is our money, but your money is your money. Yeah,
right. Women make the majority of the buying decisions. Right. I don't tell my wife what to spend on groceries. I put money over there where she can touch it, and she goes and buys groceries, and then she tells me when she spent all the money, and I give her more money. And that's kind of how it works for most families. Now, I make the big decision to go spend $250,000 on a big chunk of land in the middle of nowhere. And I made that entirely without my wife's input, right?
Yeah.
Obviously not. We shopped for property all over the place. When we bought a minivan when we started having more kids. And, she picked out the color, and then I tried on minivans until I found one I could fit in. We made that decision together. Now, my pick-em-up truck I've had longer than I've been married, so she didn't get any say in that. Thank you, Sergeant Major, for everything there. Because y'all, my dad and my buddy Cade got in my pick-em-up truck and drove it from Georgia to California when I was stationed in Monterey with the Army. That's a whole story on its own. But anyway, the point being, women make the majority of the buying decisions. And Cameron and I were talking about this yesterday. I find it difficult to believe the polls that say that this is a razor's edge, very close election, because that assumption presupposes that exactly 50% of United States people, not just citizens, but American persons, U.S. persons, never buy groceries. They don't drive an automobile that uses petroleum fuel. They don't pay an electric bill. They don't pay rent. They don't use water. Right? I mean, I can probably be convinced that half the people don't have any idea what's going on geopolitically with war in Ukraine and war in Israel. Excuse me. But you want me to believe that 50% of Americans either care about nothing other than abortion or have not bought groceries, and some combination of this, haven't spent money in the last 4 years, haven't gone to McDonald's and ordered a Big Mac in the last 4 years.
Haven't had to pay rent. I'm currently renting, and all the stories you hear about the ridiculous spike in rent prices, I can assure you they are true. It is the amount of rent that is owed every month on my lease would have terrified me to even consider 5 or 10 years ago. I said, man, if I'm going to pay that much money, I'm going to be living in a $500,000 house. So I'm gonna drag you back.
10 years ago, that would have been true.
I'm gonna drag you back. Predictions, like you were going, and then you started talking about women voters.
I am extremely optimistic. I do believe Donald Trump is going to win this election legitimately. That said, there's already a great deal of cheating being telegraphed. So I think Donald Trump's going to win. But unless he also wins the popular vote or dramatically overperforms in the Electoral College, they're going to try to steal it again.
Yeah, I think in this go round, I'm not saying that nobody will ever try and steal an election ever again, but I think in this go round, and we've talked about this privately. Everybody is so attuned to it. Even people on the left that are so ready to dismiss it. Oh, miss me with all your bullshit about what happened in 2020. There were 80 court cases that were dismissed and blah, blah, all that. Everybody is so hyper-focused on the prospect of there being election shenanigans. I just don't know how the left could get away with it this time. I really don't.
Oh,
that's one of the reasons why I'm so optimistic.
Okay, can I explain it to you? Can I explain to you how the left could get away with it again? Because it's actually the same way they got away with it in 2020. So here's what happens. No reasonable person is able to look at 2020 and say, this was an election that went the way elections go in America, right? For just a second, forget about cheating, the steal, et cetera, et cetera. 2020 was an abnormal election. Things were done illegally. But forget that. The mere fact that on Wednesday morning, we did not know who the president was, that is a thing that hasn't happened before. In 2000, we knew Bush won on Wednesday morning, and then There were arguments, court cases, recounts, et cetera, and there was some suspicion that maybe the election might get flipped. But in 2020, we were told we don't know who won for weeks. And here's how they get away with it. There are so many Democrats who are intelligent enough to look at 2020 and say, I understand that something was amiss. And many of them are even intelligent enough to look at it and say, okay, there were actual crimes committed here. There were rules and laws that were changed without the involvement of legislatures. There was blatant lying with things like the Bristol boards in PA and the broken water main in Atlanta.
That was a leaky toilet.
Right. And the leaky toilet was from like 12 hours before the claim. A total fabrication. But there are Democrats out there who are smart enough to look at it and say, okay, obviously we stole the election in 2020. And I'm good with that. That's how they get away with it, is half the country actually prefers that things be done in the least reasonable and moral way possible. They would actually rather steal the election and force their will upon the rest of you idiot rubes who don't know no better and force you to live your life the way they want you to live it. They would rather steal the election, take power, and then take custody of your children so that they can be mutilated and sterilized. Confiscate your firearms. Increase your taxes. Pour out all your raw milk. Right? Force you to go vegan and eat nothing but fake processed meat and bugs. They prefer the steal. And so no amount of blatant stealing is going to convince everybody that it happened. The only way there are consequences is if the other half of the country says, no, we are tired of your shit. We just can't take it anymore.
Well,
no, you're not going to kick in my door and take my money and my property and my guns and my children.
Well, we've got a few things going for us now. Like we had defortification laws in Georgia passed. And while I don't think they went far enough, I think, frankly, that anything other than you show voter ID, period, end of sentence, anything other than that doesn't go far enough. But we had at least a degree of defortification laws passed in Georgia. That's why I feel like Georgia will go red. We can compare 2018 to 2022 with the governor's race, and Brian Kemp increased his victory margin over Stacey Abrams by about 200,000 votes. So I do think that's one thing we have going for us. Another thing that we have going for us is now Elon owns Twitter. X. Sorry, Elon. People are going to dead name it forever. I think you've accepted this.
Yeah, so, and Elon has some very interesting thoughts on the phrase dead naming.
Anyhow, but we've got that. We now have a social media platform that is not going to censor pertinent information leading up to the election and is not going to censor pertinent information post-election. You know, for the first several months, okay, so for like a few days after the 2020 election, it was okay on YouTube to suggest there might have been voter fraud or whatever. But then YouTube came down with a policy, and remember that's why we had all the stuff about erection frogs and the amphibious priapism, because we had to talk in code just to even suggest that the 2020 election had some suspicious activity to it.
And
Well,
to this
now,
day, the only video we've had removed over a strike and gotten a hard strike on was the one where we reported on Raffensperger suggesting that all Trump election denialism was being funded by Stacey Abrams.
I thought we had a COVID one removed as well, but
we did, but it got restored.
Oh, you mean after it was? Oh, yeah. RNA vaccines are in fact an experimental technology, and that's a scientifically accurate statement. Yeah, funny that. Yeah, that's right, guys. I got our channel our first hard strike. That was me. Badge of honor. But so we've got those two things, and then we've got the third thing. We've got the fact that Elon Musk, again, lifelong Democrat, who has said, no more. Like, this shit is getting insane. We've got Tulsi Gabbard, a Bernie bro. Tulsi Gabbard was a Bernie bro. And now she's on the Trump train. And you got Brett Weinstein. And you got RFK Jr. And
Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has officially endorsed Donald Trump.
Yep. He tweeted that in the last 24 hours that he's decided he's going to endorse Trump. And meanwhile, the left is operating in this space by running ads that, and I kid you not, this was a real political ad. Look it up, where a young man is laying in bed, masturbating while watching porn on his phone.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to show that one.
And a Republican congressman materializes out of thin air and tells him he's not allowed to do that because the Republicans are going to ban porn. This is what the left has in the face of all of that. So, are there a certain number of people that are okay with winning by cheating? Well, sure, there always are. But is there a large enough section of people that are okay with winning by cheating where they're willing to hand over the nuclear codes to a woman nobody really likes? That's the bottom line of it. Nobody wants to admit this, at least on the left, but Kamala Harris isn't likable. She never got a single delegate vote in the primaries. She was embarrassed. In fact, by Tulsi Gabbard, was embarrassed in the primary process. And apparently, if you've seen her naked, you like her a lot. But outside of that, Kamala's just not very likable. You put all those things.
That half a dozen men who were in a position to put her into a political office.
No, but yeah, potentially at the same time, which, I mean, you do you. Apparently that thing's got more grip than a retard fighting over the last Lego. So whatever. But you put all those things together, and I don't see the scenario that you laid out where enough people are okay with winning by the cheat. I don't see it, man. I don't see it.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to agree to disagree on that one. One of the most difficult. I talked about this yesterday on the show, but now that I've got you here, I'll bring it up again. One of the most difficult things to overcome and this will be true in elections going forward for some time, unless Trump wins the popular vote this time, and maybe even still then. Bless you. Is that the left has gone so psychotically far that it's difficult to it's actually difficult to impress upon someone how far they have gone, right? Because the example I used yesterday, like my father is far from a leftist and one of the smartest people I know. The first polyglot I was ever aware of. Brilliant. But when the whole thing happened with the post-birth abortion bill in Virginia, and I was telling him about it, he told me that's crazy. They could never do that. And I brought it up. I was like, no, it's here. This is no shit something they're doing. And then you had Governor Northam out there. We'll make the infant comfortable while we decide what to do with it. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I mean, they really
we'll
are.
Have a conversation.
Right. So, they're telling
conversation
you.
About what? Like,
the baby's been born. And remember, Barack Obama, Tim Walz, these, anybody who's got a D by their name and has had an opportunity to do so, when they talk about when conservatives talk about post-birth abortions on the campaign trail, I wish they would be more explicit about it. Part of what they're talking about is children who are the product of a botched abortion, where they failed to murder the child before they got it out of the woman, and then they leave the child on a table and starve it to death. And there have been bills called Born Alive bills, which seek to require that, hey, there's a baby here and it's dying. And all these Democrats have voted against requiring the doctor to provide life-saving care to that human being because they want it dead.
Well, of course.
Right.
But the implication is if you have to save its life after a failed abortion, it was alive before you aborted the baby. Like, that's
correct.
I'm not saying I like
Tim Walz. Tim Walz recently signed what was it, the Net 20 bill, and that says that the state has to go carbon zero. Net zero bill. The state has to go carbon zero by 2040 and 80% carbon zero by 2030. Right? So a law signed by Tim Walz seeks to eliminate all fossil fuel in Jesus, what state is he from? Anyway, he signed the net zero bill. So what do you think that's going to do to your energy prices? It's going to take them through it's going to be psychotic. It's going to be insane. What's another good example? Oh, the banned books thing. Oh, conservatives want to ban books. We're talking about books where you have cartoon drawings of people engaged in adult activity.
Explicit adult activity.
Incredibly explicit, deviant adult activity.
Yeah, like we're not just talking about vanilla missionary here. It's
right.
It's shocking what is
and that's something that they're actively pushing. And when you try to tell they had what's her name? Marianne Williamson, the crystal lady?
The crazy lady.
Yeah. She went on the Tim Pool show and he was telling her about that. And she was saying, oh, free speech absolutism. I think censorship is bad. Yada, yada. And he said, so you support these books being in school. Well, yeah. I mean, what harm could there be? And he said, okay, cool. Let me show you the books we're talking about. The books we're trying to ban. These are them. Right. And she broke down in tears because she had no idea. Her only understanding was that the Democrats say Republicans are banning books. That's a Nazi thing. Turns out all the books that we're talking about are literal pornography that's being offered to kindergartners and K through 12 are being inundated with this. And it's not just being set where they might run into it in the library. These are being used in instruction, in classrooms. It's insane. And the fact is that the left has gone beyond parody. If you try to tell a Democrat what their party is trying to do to the country, they don't believe you because their own position is so psychotically far. It doesn't even feel right to say far left. It's just psychotic. Right? A far left radical might be a communist, and that's an awful, awful thing. But the Russians didn't do a whole lot of gender mutilation in the USSR. The Russians didn't truck with a lot of pornography and Well, hell, let's be real. Pure communists are not interested in abortion because they need bodies to work the fields.
Yeah.
They need more citizens to be sacrificed on the altar of ecumenical politics because they will work you to death picking rice.
Yeah. In Mother Russia, medicine abort you.
Yeah. In Mother Russia, the road forks you. Okay. Sorry. I worked with a Russian soldier in the army who, okay, let me correct that. He was a U.S. soldier, but before he immigrated to the U.S., became a citizen, and joined the U.S. Army, he was a petty officer in the Russian Navy. He grew up in Russia, and he was a young man in Russia when the Soviet Union fell. And, you know, a bunch of us sitting around drinking beers, hanging out at the bar one night. Somebody was cracking, probably me, at least a few of them were cracking the in Mother Russia jokes. We're just teasing him a little bit about, because he had that thick accent. We were, you know, he had said something about not being able to find a date. And we're like, brother, you're 6.5 feet tall with black hair and blue eyes and a sexy accent. Bitches are everywhere, my man. This is Monterey, California.
Just talk to him.
I promise you will get laid if you just stand up and say hello. That's all you got to do. Stand up and say hello, and you're good. But we were teased him about the accent a little bit, and did the in Mother Russia road forks you, and he just like out of nowhere, deadpan, serious, completely serious face. Oh, it was in Mother Russia 911 calls you, and he goes, no. In Mother Russia, 911 breaks down your door and beats you up. They asked me for money and took my vodka. And we're sitting here just like, do I laugh? Comrade, I'm not sure if that was funny.
Yeah, dark humor is like food. Not everybody gets it.
They kick down door and break my nose and say, "You have money? Give me vodka." I'm like, okay. And that was, I mean, legitimate experience that he was talking about. Like, that's communism. And what the Democrat Party is today is a caricature of the worst evils that you cannot even imagine under a total communist regime.
Yeah. So, well, buddy, it's we're an hour deep, and I do have stuff I have to handle today because I promised Alex that I'd go on his stream tonight, so I have to.
I'm okay. I'll talk to Alex. I might pop in for a little bit, but I really want to watch the Crowder stuff tonight. We'll see how that shakes out. I'll talk to him in a little bit, but there's something I want to touch, and this might take a little time. I meant to get to it earlier, but I don't know. Have you seen this yet? Blue states benefited from 2020 census mistakes as red states suffered losses. Now, we've talked a bit already about how California is actually overrepresented, and now it looks like it might be up to 10 of their electoral college votes are illegitimate based on the not just on the fact that they counted illegal aliens in the census, but they overcounted the population in California generally. So I was about to get to this with predictions a minute ago. There is a scenario here where Kamala has 270, Trump has 268, and they come back and say, yeah, except you stole through at the most generous interpretation through bureaucratic incompetence. You stole 2 votes from California and added 2 votes that didn't, and added almost 10 votes that didn't belong in. No, you stole 2 votes from Florida, added 10 votes to California, and those aren't the only places. The results of the census errors in Florida and Texas, 2 red states, should have 3 more electoral seats that they never got. And whereas 3 blue states, Minnesota, Rhode Island, and Colorado, have 3 congressional seats and thus 3 electoral votes that they should not have. Think about what that does to this map. Right? Let's assume that this map is 100% correct and accurate, and this is what's going to happen. If that finding is correct, and that's without even including, wait, did it mention California in there? It didn't. That's without even considering what I was just saying about California maybe having 10 more than it should. So you take that, 10 from California, and then what were we talking about? A shift of 6, 12. So you're looking at 320. You're looking at Republicans 320 to Democrats 210.
220.
Right? 220.
Minus, yeah.
That's huge. And that's the census error. Now, like we've talked about before, in 2020, the Democrats, and I'll grant it was a wise strategic maneuver because they knew what they were doing. The Democrats fought tooth and nail to prevent Trump and his allies from adding the question of citizenship to the census. Now, obviously, that needs to be fixed. If you are not a U.S. citizen, and I'm not even going to say U.S. persons in this case, right? Because you've got U.S. citizens, then you've got U.S. persons, which includes legal resident aliens, people who are lawfully present, long-term residents, right? That's U.S. persons. And then you've got hostile criminal foreign invaders. Well, right now, all 3 of those categories get counted for the purpose of apportionment. If I had my way, only citizens, right? I don't care if you're a foreigner. If you're legally present, a lawful immigrant, right? That's fine. But you don't get a say in the government.
Not even indirectly. Yeah, look, I wish you'd brought it up earlier because I have stuff I have to do in order to prepare.
Were you at least tracking on this already?
No. But I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Like we talked about it way back when it was ruled that they were not allowed to ask the citizenship question on the census, because it's like, okay, well, why in the world would you have that for any reason other than you want to inflate the numbers? It's like the voter ID thing. It's like, okay, give me the one good reason why requiring voter ID is a bad thing. You don't have one. So if you don't have one, there's only one conclusion I can draw from the fact that you oppose voter ID. You want to leave your options open to cheat. Same thing. But I'll say this, and then I really am going to have to jump off. Go vote. Keep your head up. Keep your powder dry. Be the happy warrior. I don't want to 100% say that I think that we got this, but y'all, I think we got this. I think everything swung in our favor. I think the Democrats just made such a fucking mess that there are.
And then they murdered Peanut.
And then they murdered Peanut. Oh my God. Like that. Who would have thought that it would come down
to willing?
Who would have thought that it would come down to an OnlyFans model with a squirrel that would meme us over the edge into a Trump victory? Who would have thought? And yet here we are.
And yeah, if Trump wins narrowly, the history will remember that Peanut won the election.
I just wanted to keep a pet squirrel.
Right? Y'all be safe out there, guys. Thanks for watching this morning. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow.